Hi, this is the second part of the 2021 support report. If you didn't see part 1, watch out for spoilers. The spoilers for the intricate storyline of support report. Ooh, I bet he's gonna review some cards in this one. We're kicking it off with Reptilian and a pretty hefty support wave of 5 cards, which is refreshing after that IV drip of support of 2 monsters through the Link era. Reptilian Yami feels like it might as well have been released right alongside Lamia, since their utility is pretty similar. They're both level 2s, although Nyami is not a tuner. They have an attack reduction effect that applies from the hand, and they've got handy graveyard effects which you can't use on the same turn as their primary effects for some reason. Come on now, we can't be having too much fun here. Anyway, it's good. I wish it also hit 0 attack, but the effect mostly makes up for it. You have a decent amount of resources in the deck to make use out of both of the effects, so there's generally no issues here. Their other new main deck monster is Reptilian Codal. Kotal card. Field presence for days. It gets dragged out to the field by other reptiles, and then drags out more reptiles from the hand. The ability to be treated as a non-tuner is handy, since there's not a lot of variety in the monsters you work with, and you're occasionally stuck with multiple tuners. This is basically a straight upgrade over most of your main deck monsters, so there's no reason to run less than 3. For their way overdue new synchro monster, we have the level 8 Reptilian Melusine. Simple summoning conditions, sturdy protection, good floating, and a pretty interesting attack reduction effect. Each time an opponent's monster effect activates, you can reduce any monster's attack to 0 as long as it's once per chain. This means that if they're really popping off, you might end up making the opponent's monster's attack values completely worthless, even though Melusine still lets the effects go through because there's no negation or destruction present here. It's not too bad since the destruction immunity tends to keep her alive for a decent amount of time, but still, having to either survive the opponent's turn or rely on other cards to make full use out of this effect is a bit annoying. Still, she's fairly easy to summon and basically the most competent monster in the archetype due to giving them something to sit on from turn 1. Her destruction immunity also makes it so that you can pop 2 cards with offering without having to lose any of your own, which is pretty fun. Helping you to quickly set up your board is Reptilian Ramifications. For a single discard, you can either search 2 Reptilian cards, those being 1 monster and 1 back row, or search 1 card and knock 1 monster's attack down to 0. This is the type of legacy support that makes me groan, because giving you this much instant access to your deck usually means the archetype is barely salvageable. At the same time, I can't really complain about it. It's a double search and a non-targeting attack drain. I say non-targeting because if you play your cards right, you can kill Dragoon with a 200 attack Nyami. This is their best back row and it's not even close. Run 3 at all times. Other than Reptilian Spawn, the card you'll most likely be searching with Ramifications is their new field spell, Reptilian Recoil. The first effect lets you blow up a 0 attack monster you control to special summon a reptile from your graveyard, which is decent. You don't run that many 0 attack monsters yourself, so your only other option for accessing them is Recoil's second effect, which lets you take control of an opponent's monster with 0 attack when they activate a monster effect, and then it spawns a 0 attack Reptilian token to their field. It's clearly meant to combo with Melusine and let you take control of the opponent's monsters mid-combo, which works well enough as basically their only interruption ability. The token spawning effect is a little weird, since while it can be used for several functions in the archetype, the opponent is most likely just gonna link it away. It's good enough, but the point still stands that Reptilian need to jump through hoops to do things other archetypes do without any issues. Even with Melusine's effect, they still have no convenient way for mass attack drainage, and the only reason they're even able to maintain consistency is because Ogdoadics exist. These two play so well in tandem, you would think they're part of the same archetype given the 0 attack playmakers and the whole reptile team. In fact, Ogdoadics have some pretty powerful search and draw combos which only employ a few Reptilians in order to work, to the point where prioritizing Reptilian over Ogdos tends to be a detriment to a deck. None of their new support has been outright bad, but Konami seems content with keeping the deck at a very consistently low power level, only making up for it by making the cards they give them actually fun to play. And for a deck this old, I guess that would be silly to complain about. I just kinda wish they got a card that lets them synchro on the opponent's turn, because shotgunning away their 5th monster's attack in a row and then summoning Hydra sounds like one of the funniest plays you could possibly make in this game. Another reptile archetype which got some love early this year are aliens, the subject of the very first archetype archive. It's also the worst staged archetype archive because there was an entire segment where I make fun of column mechanics and then links got announced within like 2 hours of the upload. I never asked for this. First up is Alien Stealth Buster. It's basically the best target for M-frame and recombination device due to the floating effect immediately spreading even more A counters onto the field, and if you go for its second effect instead, it turns them into quick spot removal. There's a good reason here why you can't use both effects on the same turn, but at least they're both very solid in their own regard. It's true that there's not much use for Stealth Buster outside of this, as the card was essentially engineered to be dumped, tributed or synchroed away, but it gives you a good return for the investment. It's great at what it does, so run 3. Their other new card is the Link monster Cosmic Slicer Zerol. I like this prevailing cosmic horror boss monster teaming for aliens. It's like an occasional apology for messing up Gangil so badly. Anyway, Zerol is fantastic. It turns A counters into a genuine threat because they can now completely shut down the opponent's monsters due to the absolute negation effect it shamelessly took from the Buster Blader fusion. It also comes with a handy search effect to kickstart or continue with spreading A counters, and because this apparently wasn't enough, it gives you an extra normal summon. Given that you might have already used one up on making the link, this is a great ability since the negation effect paired up with Alien Kid is an extremely nasty play, so having the option to easily bring it out is perfect. Zerol is the type of support most GX era archetypes wish they could get, providing immense utility while staying completely in line with the deck's design, so there's not much else to say here besides prioritize summoning this thing. As one of my favorite archetypes in terms of combining the team and playstyle, I'm glad the bits and pieces of support aliens have been getting are all pretty good. Modernizing their effects while keeping the counter focus is exactly what I'm looking for, especially when the way their new cards are designed still enables you to use some of their older, wackier stuff. Once again, their field presence is mostly salvaged by Ogdo Addicts, but can you blame a monster type for employing a decent engine instead of dealing with garbage opening hands 9 out of 10 times? They're good snakes, Brent. Well, I don't think aliens are in a great spot right now. Really, they could use more consistency and recovery. I think they're fun enough to play with their current cards. The last archetype we'll be looking at in this video are Ghostrix? Like, for real?
I thought you were dead.
Yes, Ghostrix of all things somehow received 4 cards worth of support, meaning there is a kind soul over at Konami thinking about all the dozen Ghostrix fans still trying to make something out of them. Well, I appreciate a good fruitless effort, so let's see what's going on here. Here we have their first ever level 4 Ghostrix Siren. Other than the standard Ghostrix effects of can't be normal summoned if you don't control a Ghostrix, also you can flip it face down when you feel like it, she's also the first in the archetype to have an effect that goes off on normal summon in addition to being flipped face up. This is presumably because they realized that shit was considered slow even back in 2013, and today it would just be a tragedy. The self-milling is a bit weird, since the archetype never really had a big graveyard focus, but their new spell which you can search with this effect basically mitigates the cost. You can also flip a monster face down instead of milling and searching, which is something your trap cards usually did for you, but now you have an additional charge for it. Also, it's not a once per turn, so you can activate it multiple times if you get the chance. The worst part of the card is really the RNG. While it does enable you to run some generic cards with floating effects, there will definitely be times when the effect just fizzles. This deck can't really afford to play around with these kinds of downsides, so I'm not sure why they opted for this condition. Regardless, Siren is something you just have to run. As an interesting antithesis to the Ghostrix playstyle, they also received a Link monster. Ghostrix Festival lets you break the rules of the game and use a face-down monster as material, because at this point why even pretend you're not desperate. Attempting to fix one of the core issues of the deck, that being the complete inability to deal with links, Festival lets you attack directly if you control a field spell, whether the opponent's monsters are face down or not. This is at most a pat on the back for a deck that needs a long-term medical plan, but the card is more than the sum of its parts. You can link away your Xyz monsters for easy recovery, it gives you access to Parallel Exceed for a quick angel, and the attack interruption lets you swap it for a face down Ghostrix which will survive the battle phase due to the field spell, and then resummon Festival next turn. It's not as versatile as a lot of people would have hoped, really it's just a set of extra large training wheels, but the additions it brings to the archetype are appreciated. The card can roughly be summed up with the philosophy of if you can't beat them, join them, and then beat them. Their new spell card is Ghostrix Shot! This is phenomenal. There's nothing bad about this card. It builds your field with face-ups, it triggers face-downs, restocks Xyz materials, and you can activate both effects on the same turn, meaning you can also revive an Xyz monster and then immediately load it up. I don't know why all of the support wasn't of this caliber, but I'll take what I can get. Run 10 of these, Jesus Christ. The last card for this video is their new trap, Ghost Trick or Treat. In a cute bit of team and effect integration, it lets the opponent either pick between losing 2000 life points and resetting the card face down, or having a monster of theirs negated, disabled from attacking, and turned face down at the end of the turn. And they're going to pick losing 2000 life points every single time, because that's basically nothing and they will win before you get to reactivate the card. Okay, well it is searchable negation and it works on links, and there's a nice idea here to make all the poking from Ghostrix slightly more threatening as the LP keeps decreasing. On the other hand, I'm not sure how much damage they think these monsters can put out, because depending on the deck you're going up against, even a repeated 2000 life point decrease doesn't mean much. Best case scenario, you manage to get a setup strong enough to make both the effects worth it, but the deck is far from consistent enough to rely on this. Running this one is completely up to preference. I know adhering to the Halloween aesthetic is an important bullet point in Ghostrix design, but I feel they're giving this deck too many tricks and not enough treats. This is an archetype that could absolutely benefit from basic but super strong support, and we got a glimpse of what that would look like with Shot, but the rest of these cards played just a little too safe. There's no need to keep going with 8-year-old effect framework just because the aesthetics demand it. Vampires had a complete turnaround of design philosophy with their 2018 support, and you know why? Because the old vampires sucked shit instead of blood. So yeah, I think they're capable of making Ghostrix way scarier than they are if they just left their comfort zone for a single support wave. See you in part 3.